Hey y'all, it's Heel Heat time.
Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and on this episode we're going to review the G1 Supercard brought to us by Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling. Let's jump right into it. If you haven't seen any of my shows before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. First match of the night was the Honor Rumble. Unfortunately, I missed the 6-man or 6-woman match because everything said that the pre-show started at 6:30, so that's when I tuned in. And it was a pre-show, but I guess there was a pre-show. Who knows? First match of the night that I seen was the Honor Rumble, which, if you're not familiar, is basically a Royal Rumble with a little bit faster time clock. I believe it was 60 seconds instead of the 90, or might have even been 45 because they were coming in rather quickly. This was a pretty decent match. I enjoy the Royal Rumble. I enjoy this style of match. A lot of things that I really liked about this. There were some really cool surprises. King Haku came out at one point, and that was pretty awesome because I'm a huge fan of Haku. A lot of the guys, Cheeseburger had a really good showing in the match. Red Titus and Will Ferrara had some really cool little spots during the match. I thought it was a really cool thing. Towards the end, we get Jushin Thunder Liger coming out, who I thought going into the match would be the winner. And the very last entrant, they saved the coolest surprise for last. One of my absolute favorite wrestlers of all time, the Great Muta, comes in at 30, and I was like, that was just awesome to me. And just seeing Muta again, it's been a while since I've seen him actually wrestle. He doesn't wrestle much. I believe he's actually retired, and he may have had 3-4 matches in the past few years. I might be wrong, but I haven't seen anything with him in the past couple of years. It came down to where it looked like the last two entrants, or last two people surviving, were going to be Muta and Liger, and the crowd was going apeshit because, of course, why wouldn't they? It's Muta and Liger, two absolute legends of wrestling. And somehow we missed the fact that Kenny King was hiding outside of the ring. Kenny King comes in, eliminates both the legends to a chorus of boos, makes good on his promise that he said he would go from number 1 all the way to the end and win it. I thought this was good. There were some spots that were a little bit, how should I say, a little bit botched, a little bit rushed. The surprises were excellent. I did and didn't like the quicker format. I liked it because it paced the match a little bit better than a Royal Rumble is. Instead of having a over an hour match, we had basically about a half-hour match, a little bit over. Or actually about 45-minute match. But also, the pacing of it made it so someone's entrance didn't really sink in. By the time they got to the ring, it was 20 seconds before someone else came out. So you didn't really get to see those cool spots where one guy comes in and starts doing work, and then, there's time before another one comes in. With all that being said, it was fun. It was interesting. I give it a 3. Next up, we have, in a double championship match, winner take all, Will Ospreay defending his never Openweight championship against Jeff Cobb defending his Ring of Honor TV championship. I like this match. I thought this was a great way to start the actual pay-per-view. If anybody, just tuned in to begin the pay-per-view here and didn't see New Japan or Ring of Honor before, this is a great example of what both companies do. I thought it was fantastic. The evolution of Will Ospreay, his new evolution into being more of a heavyweight type wrestler, adding more of a striking style, going away a little bit from the super how can I say, gymnastic flippy style, and I don't mean that in a bad way. And, incorporating more things, incorporating more psychology. I thought this match was fantastic. I thought it was a great way to open the show. I think it's a great way to introduce new fans that may be just tuning in to Ring of Honor and New Japan for the first time off of the hype of them being in Madison Square Garden. It was really cool. Jeff Cobb picks up the win. I'm going to give this match a 4. I thought it was an excellent way to start the show. Now, next up, we had a match that actually I was a little bit intrigued and really wanted to see. ROH versus Dalton Castle. And I'm going to say this is probably the most disappointing match of the night. And there's reason. These two are both top-tier, excellent talents. Two guys that should be in the Ring of Honor Heavyweight Championship picture at all times, or the TV title picture. The way they booked this, it really seemed odd to me. They had one of the boys basically go back in the ring to get a feather that had fell out before the match could start, distracted Dalton Castle, and ROH won in 30 seconds. Basically, I've already been talking longer about this match than the match actually went on. So it was a total domination, total squash for ROH, which I didn't like. I wish we could have seen these two guys have an actual match, because I think the two of them, their skills and their skill sets would have made a great match. I understand why they probably did it. It's the ongoing storyline of Dalton Castle, which we get after the match. He attacks and beats down the boys, so I get why they did it. I just wish they would have let him go for longer. I'm going to give it a 2. I don't want to hate it. I don't want to give it a 1, but I kind of do hate it in a way. Like I said, story-wise, I think it's good. Match-wise, I think it was terrible. Next up, we have for the Women of Honor Championship, Mayu Iwatani versus Kelly Klein. I really enjoyed this match. This is probably one of my 2 favorite matches of the night. I thought Kelly looked great. I thought Mayu looked great. I think they both put on a hell of a show. I think this is their best match to date. And that's saying something, because they have had great matches pretty much every time they stepped in the ring. I thought it was a fantastic way, again, for people that don't know Women of Honor, for them to be introduced. Ultimately, and I'm biased with this because I absolutely love Kelly Klein. She's in my top 5 favorite wrestlers right now. And Kelly Klein picks up the win, which made me extremely happy. I really enjoyed this match, and I may be biased, but to me, it had a great outcome. I think Kelly Klein is a perfect champion to represent Ring of Honor and Women of Honor. I think she's just great in everything she does. She's great when she deals with the public. She's great in the ring. That's pretty much what I could say about that. I'm going to give this match a 5. I toyed with giving it a 4 or 5, but I think it gets it. It gets the 5 from me. Now, after the match, we have Velvet Sky and Angelina Love coming down to the ring, and it looks like they may attack Kelly Klein, so Mandy Leone leaves the commentating booth, which she commentates on most of the Women of Honor matches, and comes down to the ring looks like she's going to help Kelly Klein, but alas, she turns on her, joins with Velvet and Angelina. They beat down Kelly Klein. They write a Anarchy Circle A on her head in lipstick. We see them leaving, and as they're leaving, a graphic comes on the screen saying The Allure. So I'm guessing that's going to be their group name for these 3. I like it. I've seen a lot of people online were crapping on it because of Velvet Sky and Angelina Love, which I don't get. They're both really good wrestlers. I think it does a couple things. The Women of Honor, let's be really honest here, it's been severely lacking some star power. It's severely lacking bodies. We've had the same matches over and over. Sumi Sakai and Mayu and Kelly Klein and all these all the other women that they have. It's good to inject 2 new wrestlers in here, especially with 2 wrestlers who have a good name value with most wrestling fans. Other than the Backlash, I think most wrestling fans look at Velvet Sky and Angelina Love and think very positively about them and think that they're good wrestlers. I do. I enjoy them immensely. I always have. I think they wrestle good. Their gimmicks are good. I know they're a little bit older now, and so what? They could still go. I mean, it is what it is, and I know a lot of people were saying it's basically a Beautiful People rehash, which it may be, but they were great in those characters. The Beautiful People is one of the highlights of TNA, and to me, this is a plus. Now, coming off of that, we had Mega Ran coming out doing his song Going to the Garden, which everybody in the Garden shit on. They're booing loudly. It just proves, I mean, even with a song that's good, which I think the song is good actually, the fans don't want to see singers or rappers at their wrestling show. They want to see wrestling. And I don't know if they would have minded if he was rapping somebody out to the ring. That's perfectly fine. That's awesome, actually. But taking away from the show to do the rap instead of wrestling or singing or playing guitar, whatever it may be, instead of wrestling, if you're not doing something like a national anthem, wrestling fans are not going to accept this. And I know they did this just to set up a gimmick where Bully Ray comes out and kind of bullies him, basically. So, I give it a pass. It leads into Bully Ray coming out, laying out the open challenge, because earlier in the night, Juice Robinson got laid out, and he's out of the match. So, Bully lays out the challenge. The returning Flip Gordon answers, which he looks great. Flip looks like to be in better shape than he's been before he left, which is astounding because he's always been in great shape. They start off wrestling. Flips gets a little bit of the upper hand, and out comes Shane Taylor and Silas Young. And they kind of start getting the upper hand on him. They start beating him down, which leads us to Juice Robinson and Mark Haskins coming in helping out Flip. Now, if Juice was beat down and couldn't do the single match and couldn't be medically cleared, why was he here? And I get it. Sometimes wrestling doesn't have to make sense, but I don't know. To me, it was a little bit of a weird thing. Turns into a 6-man match. Total hardcore rules, total, plunder and garbage all around. I like hardcore matches, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that because I can't name all the crap they used. There were a couple things that were a little bit cringy. They used an obviously gimmicked palette at one point that the cameraman couldn't turn away from showing us how it was gimmicked before it broke. There's a couple spots in the match that was like, okay, that's just a silly spot. And I don't mean silly like a comedy spot, I mean silly like stupid to do. So ultimately, that took away from my enjoyment of the match. I thought it was good. I don't think it was great. I don't think it was anything to write home about. Kind of feel like Bully and Flip's feud ended at Final Battle, and this was kind of, we need to give these two guys something to do here. Ultimately, the face team won. Juice Robinson, Mark Haskins, and Flip Gordon. I'm going to give this match a 3. Thought it was good. I feel like with the guys involved, it could have been much better. Now, next up, we have for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Taiji Ishimori representing New Japan, who is the champion going into the match, versus Bandido representing Ring of Honor, versus Dragon Lee, who's representing CMLL. So we get a third company being represented in the show, and ultimately we'll have a fourth later on. This was a pretty cool match. I thought it was okay. Again, it felt like at this point of the match, at this point of the show, they felt like this match got rushed a bit, whereas in juxtaposition, the match before, the hardcore match, felt like they gave it too much time. It felt like that went on too long. This one felt like it was rushed and they weren't given as much time as they should be. Ultimately, I think the match suffered because of it. I thought it would have been a great match. It was a good match. I'm not by no stretch of the imagination crapping on it, but I expected a little bit better. Dragon Lee picked up the win. He's the new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, which is really cool. Hopefully that means that Hiromu Takahashi is coming back soon, so we can see Hiromu versus Dragon Lee to make up for him breaking his neck, which we know was an accident. But, you know, storyline-wise, he's going to come after him. And ultimately, I thought, like I said, I thought it was a good match. I'm going to give it a 3. I just wish it was a little bit better. Now, next up, we have another double championship match. The Guerrillas of Destiny defending their IWGP Tag Team Championship versus Villain Enterprises versus the Briscoe Brothers versus Evil and Sonata in a 4-way match. I actually liked this match a lot. I thought this match was really good. I love all 4 of these teams. Let me temper that. I love 3 of these teams, and I like a lot one of these teams. I like Brody King and PCO as a team. I don't think they've quite gelled yet to be a team, and I think they'd be better served as both being singles. Just my opinion. I'm more of a fan of Brody King than I am of PCO at this point. I'm not one of the people, I don't get the PCO affection. I get that he's an older guy doing some stuff and his character is so weird and crazy. I get that, but it just doesn't resonate with me, which is okay. I can enjoy matches he's in without his character resonating to me. And without me liking him, I can like or dislike a match. I thought this was a really good match. I liked it for what it was. It was brutal. All of these teams have a similar style where they like to go straight forward and beat you up. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was great. I kind of expected either the Guerrillas or Evil and Sonata to win. And of course, the Guerrillas of Destiny did win. I give the match itself a 4. I thought it was really good. It's probably one of my favorite matches of the night. Probably my 3rd favorite match of the night, if I'm going to be honest. Now, afterwards, we have to talk about the elephant in the room. Enzo and Big Cass jumping the guardrail. Now, there's conflicting reports whether this is a work or a shoot. It wasn't shown on the show. All the footage that I've seen came from cell phone cameras. Now, from what I've seen, makes me think that it was a work. Because juxtapose this with what happened at the Hall of Fame with Bret Hart, where 20 wrestlers were on top of the guy within 10 seconds. These guys jumped the rails, and I don't think security ever really rushed them. I don't think the response was what it would have been if it was a real, they were jumping and it was unknown. So to me, there were a couple things that made it seem real as well. All the punches being thrown looked to be real. People seemed to be getting really welted up and beat up, which they could have agreed to do beforehand. They could have agreed to throw live rounds beforehand. But here's what it ultimately came down to make me think this is work, and I could be wrong. This is just my opinion. When they jumped the rails, they went specifically after the Briscoe brothers. The Briscoe brothers were the only team out of the 4 teams that attacked them back. We have the Guerrillas of Destiny out there, Villain Enterprises, and Evil and Sonata. Now, in most times that you see someone jump the rails, and maybe it's because they're workers too, and the other guys maybe didn't know thought it was part of an angle they didn't know about. Again, I don't know. But none of those guys came to help out the Briscoes. When you could see the punches looked real, you would think that they would come help. Bully Ray ran out from the back and helped, which is another thing that's kind of sticks to me. If Bully Ray is in there fighting, and you got the Guerrillas of Destiny, who were trained by the Dudley Boys at the 3D Academy, and their trainer is there fighting, you don't think that they're going to jump in and fight with him? You don't think that Tonga and Tonga Loa don't respect the business and don't respect their trainer? To me, that was the telling factor. The fact that they're just sitting there watching what's going on. Again, they could have been confused. They could have thought it was a work and not been clued in. To me, it looks like a work. I smell a rat, is my opinion. And if it is, it was very poorly done. Moving on from that, we get for the British Heavyweight Championship, Rev Pro being represented here, the 4th different company on the show, which is freaking awesome. 5th if you include the Stardom girls, which we kind of have to. I mean, I guess we have one of them as a women's champion. So 5 different companies represented here on the show. We have Zack Sabre Jr. defending the British Heavyweight Championship against Tanahashi. I thought this was a good match. I think the Enzo distraction, even watching it live, kind of took away from this because the crowd was out of it. I was out of it. I was constantly, my Twitter was blowing up, my Facebook Messenger was blowing up, my text messenger was blowing up. Hey, do you see what's happening? What the hell's going on? What's going on? And then, of course, you're trying to read this all while a match is going on. So you're not really giving full attention to what should have been a great match. And I think that, coupled with the fact that I think this was another match I think got shortened. I think the match didn't exactly deliver as it could have. And it tempered my enjoyment of that. Zack Sabre Jr. retains the title. I give the match a 3. I expected to like this a lot more than I ended up liking it. And that's kind of a shame. It's probably all to deal with Enzo and Cass's run-in. Now, next up, we have Naito defending the Intercontinental Championship against Kota Ibushi. Again, this was another match I felt didn't get quite enough time. It had a decent amount of time, but I think it would have been better served to be a 30-40 minute match where it wasn't. I thought this match was good. Again, this is another one, maybe my expectations were too high. I enjoyed this match a lot. I thought it was a really good match, but not a great match. Eventually, Kota picks up the win and becomes a new Intercontinental Champion. I agree with the result. It just, to me, I feel like these two could have something better. And maybe that's just it. Maybe they're holding off for a later point where they have a better match against each other. Now, next up from that, we have one of our 2 main events, a ladder match for the Ring of Honor World Championship. The champion Jay Lethal defending against the villain Marty Scurll and Matt Taven. This was another match that I think there was a lot in here, and this tends to happen sometimes with ladder matches where it gets too convoluted, where you see this set up too much, where you see too much cooperation between the wrestlers. And whenever I see that, when I see the too much cooperation, it kind of takes me out of it. I don't know if that's the same for you guys. I'm okay with, noticing a couple times in a match that they're cooperating. I'm not okay when there's whole segments where you could tell it's... The best way to put it is like a dance routine. And these are three supremely talented wrestlers. I just think it felt at times a little bit too choreographed, a little bit too sanitized, a little bit too prepared or too thought out, where it should have been a little more chaotic. And it took away from it a bit for me. I think we had a great moment at the end with Matt Taven picking up the win finally. I think he should have won that final battle. He should have won the championship there. But Ring of Honor historically seems to do this every now and again, where they elongate somebody's ascension to the top, and sometimes they wait a little bit too long. We're gonna see if they waited a little too long with Taven. I know he's a good enough wrestler and character that he's gonna pull that off, so I don't think that to be the case here. I'm gonna give the match a 4. I thought it was really good. Again, it didn't quite get to that great plateau to me. And last but not least, our other main event of the night for the IWGP Championship, Jay White versus Kazuchika Okada. This was probably my favorite match of the night. And it's really kind of weird saying that because it's taken a lot for Jay White to grow on me. Much like I said with PCO, I wasn't a fan of him. I wasn't a fan of his excursion in Ring of Honor. He bored me, actually, when he was in Ring of Honor. I found him a little bit too pasty and too vanilla, basically, too bland. He's grown a bit, and I gotta give the devil its due. I gotta give the guy props. He continues to get better, which I love seeing. And I think that's one of the things that makes me a fan of guys. It makes me a fan of certain wrestlers. Much like I said with Will Ospreay. Here's another guy that's evolving his character, evolving his skill set. And ultimately, that's going to win over fans like myself who see that you're putting in the hard work to get better and bring us that might not have been your fan originally onto your side. It was a fantastic match in my opinion. Like I said, it's my favorite match of the night. Kazuchika Okada, one of the great wrestlers of this generation. We're going to look back at this and we're going to realize just how awesome it is that we had him, and just the fact of the people that we've had in this generation in New Japan and in Ring of Honor, guys like Jay Lethal, Kazuchika Okada, Zack Sabre Jr., Tanahashi, Ibushi, even some of the guys that left like Kenny Omega, Kushida. I mean, this is really a golden age for both New Japan and Ring of Honor. Some of the most talented wrestlers that have come out of either company are either wrestling for them right now or have wrestled for them recently. And I think that's awesome. And I really enjoy this. Kazuchika Okada is another guy that's constantly evolving, constantly getting better. Even though he's arguably one of the top 1 or 2 wrestlers in the world, he's constantly improving on his craft, so he stays the top wrestler or one of the 2 or 3 top wrestlers in the world. I don't believe that any time over the last half decade you wouldn't consider him either number 1 or number 2. And that's amazing. The guy's been that good and that hot for that long. Usually, you don't stay on top that long. Even look at a guy like the aforementioned Kenny Omega. He was the best wrestler in the world last year, but he hasn't done anything this year. So, is he going to be? I mean, if he wrestles 4 matches this year, doesn't that just make him like Brock Lesnar? And I'm a Kenny Omega fan, no criticism. I'm not saying that as a criticism on him. I'm just saying that while we're waiting to see what AEW does, Kazuchika Okada is still out here putting on match after match that's fantastic. I think they did the right thing here, letting Okada win, and Okada did pick up the win, by the way. I don't know if that was the plan going into this, because it left Jay White with having no title defenses, which I don't think is something they wanted to do. I think they read the room and said, hey, we have to call an audible here, and we have to give these guys something to leave on that's going to be positive. And I think that's where we get this this title change. Maybe it was the plan all along. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Watching the match, I couldn't tell there was a visible audible anywhere, so it could have been the plan all along, in my opinion. But I think we're looking at 2 guys that are talented enough that they would have pulled that audible off without anybody knowing. I thought this was the best match of the night. I'm going to give it a 5. A great way to end the show. But now we're going to go into the show itself. To me, there were some issues. The length of the show. And I know that's going to sound crazy when we're about to be presented with an 8-hour WrestleMania. This show felt like it ran long. It felt like at times it was dragging out. Couple of the matches, couple of spots I think went too long. The whole Mega Ran going into the hardcore 6-man match was long. They went long with the Allure beating down Kelly Klein. That to me, I think, took longer than it should have as an angle. The same thing with Dalton Castle beating up the boys. They milked getting into it a little bit too long, in my opinion. If the Enzo and casting is a work, it's a distractor to me because it wasn't shown on TV or shown on pay-per-view or however you want to call it. So they didn't capitalize on it if it was. And if it wasn't, if it was, it took away from the show and didn't add to it, in my opinion. There were some matches that felt rushed. Naito and Ibushi. The 3-way junior heavyweight match felt a little bit rushed. The main event I know was rushed because they ended at 11:58. And knowing what I know about Madison Square Garden, once it goes past midnight, I think it's something crazy. Like to broadcast, you have to spend like $10,000 a minute or something crazy like that. So I know there was something cut from that. The match itself, you wouldn't tell that it was cut, but it feels... Hey, you understand what I'm getting at. You know, just because of time constraints, it was cut. And that's the overall thing. The pacing of the show took this from what should have been a great show to an average to good show, in my opinion. And this should have been... They should have went balls out. Let's give our best effort here. This probably had the most eyes on it on any Ring of Honor show that there's ever been. And probably right up there with Wrestle Kingdom as far as New Japan for eyes on it. So they should have treated it as such, which it kind of, the way it was booked, it looks like it was treated that way. But the show itself, for all the reasons I mentioned, it detracted from the overall enjoyment. This is one of the shows where the overall is less than the sum of its parts. There's some really good and great matches here. White versus Okada, I think, is one we could go back to for a generation and say, look at how great this match is. Iwatani and Kelly Klein was a great match. The tag team match was really good. Naito and Ibushi, while feeling short, is really good, and if it sets the bar for other matches of theirs, I understand the story. Ospreay and Cobb was a really good match. So there was some really good high points in the show. It just felt too long. It felt like it was dragging at points, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I got tired and I got worn out by the end of the show. I can't imagine what it would have been to be sitting there. I was in the comfort of my own home, where if I felt like it, I could lay down, or if I needed to stretch my legs, I could stand up and stretch my legs. I could put on gym shorts and sit in gym shorts and a t-shirt and watch it and be very comfortable. So if I felt that way, I know the people live felt that way too. Overall, I'm going to give the show a 4. I thought it was good, and I'm probably being a little bit generous with my rating. I think there was room left for it to be great, and I expected greatness, which may be why I sound a little bit disappointed in giving a show a 4, which to me, if I watch a pay-per-view that's a 4, I'm very excited. I expected this to be a solid 5. And it really wasn't. So maybe I'm being a little generous, maybe I'm not. Maybe you guys feel differently. Let me know what you think. Did you enjoy the matches? What was your favorite match of the night? Mine was the main event. Hit me up in the comments. Make sure you hit like and share, all that other good stuff that Facebook or all YouTube people tell you to do. My name is George Coles, and this has been my review of New Japan and Ring of Honor's G1 Supercard.